Hello guys, welcome to my evolution fairy tale number 3, and today I'm going to be explaining about junk DNA. Well, apparently junk DNA has been widely used by evolutionists as evidence for evolution. The reason why it's considered evidence for evolution is because the so-called pseudogenes don't have any function and they are leftovers of our ancestors. However, according to scientific research, especially the Project ENCODE, it has been found that the so-called junk DNA is actually 80% functional and theoretically 100% functional. Now, before I go on and explain further, I will first like to explain why evolution is considered as evidence. Before, evolutionists considered junk DNA as evidence against a designer, because why would a designer put 97% junk DNA? And they also believe that the leftovers of in the junk DNA, such as pseudogenes, retroviruses, and retrotransposons, are evidence for leftovers of our common ancestor. However, all of that is bullshit. As I explained before, 80% of the so-called junk DNA is actually 80% functional. Now, evolutionists try to hide the embarrassment by saying, well, so what? Just because the junk DNA is 80% functional doesn't mean it's practically significant. What is actually practically significant are the protein coding regions. It is pretty clear that evolutionists are playing semantics in the word functional to hide their embarrassment about the junk DNA. So instead of evolutionists considering those 80% junk DNA functional, they consider it non-functional in the way that they don't have any important significance unlike protein coding regions. However, this is false. The 80% functional regions of the DNA actually do play a significant role. They play a significant role in what is called gene expression and epigenetics. There is evidence that when species are exposed to a certain environment, their genome actually turns on genes and actually shuts off genes. Now, the genes that are turned on actually come from pseudogenes that were once thought non-functional or leftovers of evolutionary descent. The on-off expression of those genes actually help the species adapt to the environment by altering its phenotype characteristics without the need of random mutations, but rather in the process of embryo development. So it is clear that the pseudogenes in the DNA are actually not pseudo at all. They actually help the species adapt to the environment by shutting off genes that are useless and turning on those that are useful. These epigenetic changes are actually non-random, and there are clearly a built-in mechanisms that help species adapt automatically to the stress environment, rather than simply invoking natural selection and mutation, as the silly neo-Darwinists want you to believe. So the junk DNA are actually practically significant in the way that helps species adapt to the stress environment. They are actually not pretty useless. They actually play a significant role, just like protein coding regions. However, those junk DNA are expressed only when they are needed. So to put this in layman terms, pseudogenes are actually activated when they are actually needed and actually do play a significant role. Now, another argument that evolution is used to hide their embarrassment is saying that, so what? It might be possible that 20% of the junk DNA is non-functional and there are possibly leftovers of our ancestors. Well, okay then, what proof do you have to show me that they are actually non-functional? Oh wait, you're just presuming that they are non-functional because you just think that common descent must be true. However, such arguments are really based on ignorance. Just because you think it is non-functional doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't. It is possible that the other 20% of the so-called junk DNA may actually have a function at all and be discovered by science in the future. When evolutionists say that, well, 20% of the junk DNA is non-functional, so I have no idea what you're talking about, are actually arguing straight off from ignorance. So that the fact that the DNA may be 100% functional shows a complete embarrassment to evolutionists, because it is clear that they are actually arguing from ignorance rather than science and empirical evidence. The fact that science is actually finding more functional regions in the so-called useless junk DNA is a clear indication that they are delaying the inevitable. And that inevitable is an embarrassment. Alright guys, well, thanks for watching the presentation and thanks for watching.